How's it going, everyone? This week for my vlog, I want to talk about the mass shootings that took place this past weekend. One of them happened in El Paso, and it was by a guy who had right-leaning ideologies, a white supremacist manifesto to boot to go along with it. And the guy in Dayton, Ohio, was apparently an extreme leftist, according to his tweets. He liked stuff from Antifa and said some comments towards certain candidates and talked about prepare and arm, be ready about if Trump doesn't leave office, So we've got two different ideologies from two different killers, but we've got a country right now that I feel is on the verge of splitting, not because of our full and mutual hatred for death and killing, because I believe that we are all on the same side on that. We are all on the same page that we do not want to see these killings take place anymore. But where the media, I feel like, would love to make it look like we are not divided is according to our political beliefs. And it got me thinking about how politics, I feel, in our country are almost becoming something that at the core of who we are almost allowing our politics to determine for us what is right and what is wrong. We're making it the most foundational piece of who we are. And it's kind of like an onion. In an onion, obviously there's outer layers, and you get to the middle of it, you get to the very core, that's the center of it. At the center of us, the thing that makes us us, the thing that makes me me, the thing that makes you you. What is that thing at the core? Or another way to look at it, if you're making circles, and the smallest circle is for tiny little things that don't really matter that much, but as you get bigger, you start to see that your worldview encompasses all of that. So everything within that giant circle is all affected by the biggest outer circle. And so a lot of people are taking their politics and they're making that their outer circle or their inner core, as far as for what determines what is right or wrong for them. And I really don't believe that for the most part that the people in our country, if they're honest with themselves, if they're getting quiet and finding a space to just get away from everything and listen to the still small voice inside, I think a lot of them know that politics should not be the very core of who you are. I think a lot of people understand that. A lot of people are getting distracted from what their true core is. And something that made me think about all of this was the other night I was at a concert with a buddy, and we went and saw Alice in Chains and Corn, and there was this black dude with a shirt on that said, "Y'all motherfuckers need Jesus." And I thought it was a hilarious shirt. And I really think that what this world needs, all these MFers, we really do need Jesus. That's what we need right now. Jesus is something that is deeper than politics. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, name your Democratic candidate, name your political party, whether it be Libertarian, Republican, or Democrat, those things aren't going to save you. Those things are not deep enough to give you joy, happiness, salvation, and hope. The things that Jesus talks about are things that are on a deeper level. There's a lot of stuff in politics that maybe you can talk about with logic that's happening right here. The stuff that Jesus talks about is right here. And it transcends into this. It actually just takes everything, because it's something that's deeper than just head. It's something that's even deeper than just heart. It's a spiritual plane of existence. And at the core of what that is love, plain and simple. The thing that unites us, that is not pointing fingers at other people. It's not judging them. It's not condemning them. It is just simply saying, love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. And these are the things that we need right now as a nation to remember. We need to remember what's at the core of who we are and not get distracted by all of the rhetoric and the garbage and the nitpicking, the backbiting, the finger pointing that is taking place on media right now. just you can't get distracted by it. So I actually wrote down some of the verses I feel that are most applicable to our situation as a society right now. Some of the words that Jesus said. Now, whether you believe in Jesus or not, I respect you. I still love you. Either way, you're great. Thank you for watching this. And I just want to say something that Jesus himself said. He said, even if you don't believe in me, believe in the works, so that you would know that the Father is in me. So let's say that you don't even believe in God. Let's say you don't believe in Jesus. You can look at these works, and I think that the challenge that Jesus is making is by the very fact of their existence, they will challenge you to consider, where did these things come from? What am I feeling? And is this something that could just arise if there weren't a God, or something to put it in my heart? The same thing that I feel in my heart is something that somebody across the planet that I've never talked to ever, in a completely different culture, they can still feel love too. The fact that we all recognize that is something that is worthy of consideration, of something higher being present to put it inside of us. Now, I believe that Jesus was also saying that you listen to the words that as Jesus is saying, listen to the words that I'm saying, and you will see the truth of it. And so you will see the Father in that. You will know that he is in me as I'm saying these things. I believe that that's what Jesus is getting at. So I wanted to just go through a few of my favorite ones that are applicable for right now. I'm going to start in Matthew 5. These are called the Beatitudes. I've got a few of them here, so I'm just going to run through, I think, some of my favorite ones of them. Matthew 5, verse 3, it says, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. A second one that goes along with that is from John 9:41. It says, if you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty. Jesus replied, but you remain guilty because you claim you can see. So both of these verses are talking about, I think at the deepest part of them, they're talking about pride, and they're talking about thinking that you are something more than what you really are. If you think that you know everything, if you think that you can see and that you've got all of the answers to all of life's problems, and you have the solutions and nobody else is right, and you're always the only right one, and the politics that you follow, they're always the only right ones. If you are saying that, then this is what Jesus would say. He would say, you need to get poor. You need to stop thinking that you have it all. In other words, being rich, living as if you're rich. You need to humble yourself. You need to get poor, and you need to realize your need for something more than what your knowledge says that it is. Because nobody's perfect. Nobody knows everything. And if you can get poor and you find the need within you for something more than yourself, so your need for something bigger, i.e. God, that's when you find the kingdom of heaven. That's when you're in position for it. If you're acting like you can see, if you were blind to begin with, then you wouldn't be guilty. But the fact that you say that you can see means that your guilt remains. So one that goes along with that, I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. It says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. I see this stuff happening on Twitter all the time. I go on Twitter. I need to stop because it just makes me mad, and it actually takes my head and my heart out of this zone that I'm talking about. And I get into that animal state of being where I get enraged just like everybody else on Twitter about everything under the sun. And what this is saying, though, do not judge others, you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. So, prime example, these shootings that just took place. Get on the news and they're still trying to pump it out. The left-leaning news is suggesting that you are complicit in these murders because you believe or you support Donald Trump. So they're saying that you might as well be a white supremacist. You might as well be the shooter yourself. That's what they're saying. Now, that's their measure. That's their judgment. They're judging basically half the country according to that measure. If you support Donald Trump, you're essentially an evil human being. So then I see people on Twitter coming back as we find out that the Dayton shooter is extreme left. And so suddenly saying, oh, okay, so according to that standard, then you're complicit in the shootings in Dayton. Is this the game that we're going to play? So Jesus' words were proven true, on Twitter. And it happens with regular frequency. People understand the truth. We understand what the level of judgment is. If you're going to judge somebody on a particular standard, somebody else is going to call you out on it when you are not living up to your own standard. So there's a much better answer. So Luke 6:37 says, "Do not condemn others, or it will come back against you." Again, there it is. "Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. Give, and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more, running over, and poured into your lap." That's like if you take those scoops that you put your protein shake in, and you pack that thing in. You pack that protein in so tight that there's no room inside that scoop anymore, and then it's heaped on top of that. That's what Jesus is saying. If you give, and you do it free-heartedly, with ready to give to others and not keep your focus on yourself, you're going to get that thing packed back full with heaping on top of it. The amount you give will determine the amount that you give back. And that's true. And you know what? I'm going to just make the comparison. That sounds an awful lot like karma teaching, which a lot of people, that's their thing. They say what goes around comes around, essentially. The Bible also says, what you sow, you will reap. These are similar teachings. But I want to go back to one that I think is very significant. I'm going to go to, this is Matthew 7, 3 through 5. It says, "And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, 'Let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye,' when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye." There's so much of this going on. And it goes back again to that standard of judging. If you're a Trump supporter and you think that he's just the man and you just think he's awesome, and you are saying that there's nothing wrong with him, but then when somebody points out that he's doing some awful things, I mean, the children being separated at the border, I don't care who the president is of that. That stuff needs to stop. That's one example where if somebody points out something that is a problem with what you believe, instead of saying, you know what, oh yeah, well, what about this about you? You see how it's just a back and forth. It's a finger pointing. I'm going to point at your log since you're pointing at what you think is a speck, and it's vice versa. You're pointing at they're saying, I've got a speck, I'm pointing at your log. It's like people aren't realizing the fact that they all have giant logs in their eyes, and nobody is seeing clearly to help the other person. And I kind of think that Jesus is aware of that. Jesus is saying, essentially, you know what? You guys are never going to get these specks. You're never going to get these logs out. You are never going to be right. But just understand, you've got it in your eye. Don't think that you're perfect. And he kind of goes on to say that, this is Luke chapter 6, verse 39. He says, "Then Jesus gave the following illustration. Can one blind person lead another? Won't they both fall into a ditch? Students are not greater than their teacher, but the student who is fully trained will become like the teacher." So the teacher, obviously, in this case, he's talking about is God. God is the teacher. So we aren't going to find our answers by thinking that we have it all figured out for ourselves. We have to look outside of ourselves. We have to pray, and we have to be honest, and we have to open up our hearts. We have to be open to love. We have to be open to loving people more than ourselves. One thing that Jesus, in all of his teachings, if you look at what is interesting about them, is he always takes you outside of the natural inclination that you would find inside of your body, the animal instinct. He's training you to take a different approach, one that sets you outside of your animal instinct and puts you off of the flesh and into the spirit mentality, because that's where true life is, and he knows it. So one example of that, where he's doing that as far as putting you into the spirit mentality instead of the flesh, and this is where we really need, this is a challenge for me as I read it. If you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. If you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. And if you give only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners give to other sinners for a full return. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Give to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. Father meaning your Father in heaven. So I want you guys to just think about what the two greatest commandments are. Again, these are things that we should be united on, far deeper than what our political persuasion is. Far deeper than whether or not we're voting for Bernie, or whether we're all set to MAGA and go to the next Trump rally. Deeper than that, the people that are on the opposite side of the political spectrum from you need to reach, if we're going to save this country and allow it to be still united and one, which as a human race, you can't escape this. We need each other. So whether you're trying to say that screw our country staying together or not, that's not the point. At some point, you need to come to the realization that we all need to be one. And if we're going to do it, we have to come back to the deeper level, that being love. Love for your brothers and sisters. That's what we all are. So Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment of them all? And this is in Matthew 22:37. Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all of the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. So I'm going to show you just a little something that I'm going to take you to another scripture where the interesting thing about this is, even if you don't know that much about what it means to love God, let's say that you don't believe in God, but you obviously still know what it means to love other people. There's a passage that suggests that there are people like that stand before the king when everything is said and done, and they didn't even know that they were serving God, but God's going to say to them, well done, my good and faithful servant. And the thing that they are doing is, when they are loving their neighbor, they are loving God. So commandments 1 and 2 are very much essentially the same thing. When you love other people, you are loving God. So this is Matthew 25, verse 34. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. We have something that we can do to mend this world, and it's not about going to the next political rally and booing the Democrats, or it's not about getting on Twitter and owning the conservative with your ideology to show him how racist the president is. It's about reaching out and saying, we are human beings. You are my neighbor, and I choose to love you. Even if we disagree, these things are so minor in comparison to the fact that as humans, we have a bond that is so much deeper than that. Loving each other is what it's all about, you guys. Loving each other is our deepest level. And we've got so much more in common through that than any politician is ever going to be able to give you. And it doesn't matter what color of skin you have. Love transcends, it passes through all of that. And so this is a call to everyone. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what your political point of view is. It doesn't even matter what your religion is. Let's all just decide to love each other. And if you want to know more about what Jesus has to say, crack it open. Crack open the book of Matthew. Read the book of John. See if what his words say resonate with you. I guarantee they will. And it's going to resonate on a deeper level than what politics ever will. Politics, they are a seductive thing that feeds a type of almost like adrenaline within you. And it's an adrenaline that causes a level of pride that puffs up yourself, because it's a rush when you are proven right and the other person is proven wrong. The way that you know that what Jesus is saying is deeper and more true than that is that when you get into his words and when you study what he's saying, you have a desire to want to reach out and build other people up. And when that happens, you get a similar form of adrenaline and rush. But it's a deeper rush. It's a more foundational rush. It's because at our core, we are not flesh. We are not the adrenaline that courses through this body. We are spirits. We are spirit beings, and we correlate with the spiritual levels of truth, which love is at the core of. So think about those things. Love the people around you. I love you guys. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on my YouTube channel, Darren Keim. I have a Facebook page called Believe You Me, where I put up some political stuff. I put up these videos. But check back in. I'm going to try to do another one of these next week, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks.